So let's talk about the delay fatigue that happens whenever you try to manifest, right? So here you are and you're doing a technique. This can be visualization, affirmation, whatever technique you use, and here's your desired reality. And here is a time delay. And you have been doing this for months, like you have been doing this specific technique or a bunch of techniques for months, and even after doing for a long amount of time, there's still a time delay. And there's a delay fatigue that is that's a delay fatigue that you are facing because you're just simply tired. You are tired of, you're exhausted doing this technique or trying to manifest your desires. So let's talk about how you can handle it. So delay fatigue happens for a bunch of reasons, right? So I will cover the most important reasons or situations that this can happen. So first of all, let's talk about what is a technique, why do we use a technique, right? So technique is used to access higher states. Techniques makes it easy for individuals to access higher states when they have been conditioned, when they have been programmed to be in a lower state for a long amount of time, right? They simply can't decide to be happy if they are sad, if they are worried, right? They simply can't decide to feel secure if they have been insecure about money for a long amount of time. I mean, they can, but simply deciding to feel a higher state, it can happen, it is possible, but it takes a practice, right? So these techniques, they essentially make it easy for individuals to access a higher state. So the purpose of a technique is to access a higher state. It is as simple as that. The technique is used to facilitate the process of manifestation. It makes it easy. But many people, what they do is they do the technique for the sake of doing it. Right? Now, this stems from the belief that technique creates your reality. So there's a fundamental belief that these people need to change, that you need to change if you have been facing the time delay, is because you might think that technique creates the reality. If I do affirmations, then I will get my desires. If I do visualization, then I will get my desires. If I script more, or if I do the ladder technique, if I do the ball technique, whatever technique you use, if you think that if I do a specific technique for a particular amount of time, then I will get my desires. It doesn't work that way. Frequency creates your reality. Not any technique, just frequency. And to put it more specifically, the most the most important factor of a frequency is emotion, right? So your emotional state creates your reality, right? So just destroy this belief because this is plain wrong. Technique doesn't create your reality. Frequency creates your reality, and to put it more simply, your emotional state creates your reality. And for you to be in the right state, we use a technique so that it is easy for you, right? So if you're doing the technique for the sake of doing it, and if you're not accessing the higher states, then how the hell would you think that you can manifest your desired reality? It's not going to happen, right? So if you're doing it for the sake of doing it for a long amount of time, then that means you're not accessing the higher states. You're not accessing love. You're not accessing the emotions that you would feel if you were already in your desired reality, right? And one more important point is time delay fatigue only happens if you're not satisfied within, if you're not fulfilled within, right? The most fundamental rule of manifestation is you can only have what you already have. So if you want to get rich, if you want to scale your business, whatever desires you have, for you to get rich, you need to be rich within. You need to get rich within. Excuse me. So, so for you to get rich, you need to be rich within, right? So if you're not rich within, if you don't feel rich within, then how the hell would you get rich in the physical reality? Because that's the most fundamental rule of manifestation. You need to have the desire that you want vibrationally to materialize it into physical reality, right? So you, if you're doing it for the sake of doing it, then that means you're not content within, right? I already repeated that point. Like delay fatigue only happens to people who don't have that desire already, who don't have that desire within, right? If you have been doing this technique properly, if you have been accessing the higher states properly, then that means you will never face the delay fatigue because you don't actually depend on external reality changing. Your emotional state is not dependent on seeing external reality change, right? It is only for those people who are waiting, who are checking. Only these kind of people who keep waiting for reality to change, who keep checking if the reality is changing, only these people will face delay fatigue, right? So if you are facing delay fatigue, then that means you are still waiting for external reality to change. And if you're dependent on seeing external reality change, then you will be waiting forever for it to change, right? So if you're waiting, if you're checking, then that means you're not in higher state, you're not accessing the higher states. If you access the higher state, if you're fulfilled within, then you don't actually care about seeing external reality change. And that attitude of not caring is actually what brings your desires into external reality, right? So it doesn't matter whether you use a technique or not. What matters is what state you are in every day, what emotions are you emitting every day, right? What thoughts are you engaging in? Like your frequency consists of your beliefs, your identity, your emotions, your thoughts, your focus. But the most important factor is your emotional state. Once you cover this, once you master the state you're in, once you practice the art of state control, I already have a video on it, you can check it out. Once you practice state control, and if you can consciously choose what state you want to be in and what state you want to access every day, once you are in control of your state, then this delay fatigue, this time delay will collapse. So that's the first reason on why people face delay fatigue, is because they keep waiting and checking. And if they are waiting and checking, then that means they are doing the technique for the sake of doing it. And if they do the technique for the sake of doing it, they're not accessing the higher states. And if they don't access the higher states, if they don't have the desire within, if they don't already have the desire vibrationally, then they will never materialize that desire into physical reality, right? So that's the first reason. Then the second reason is more basic, right? It is way more basic than you think. So again, here's you are doing a specific technique for a long amount of time, but you still face this delay fatigue, and you still haven't got your your desired reality. And the main reason for this, I mean, the second reason for this is you are not consistent with your practice. It is as simple as that. Let me explain, right? So let's say it's you or you, right? And you have faced years or even decades of programming and conditioning, right? So, and you're tired of being in your reality, you're tired of being in lack, you're tired of being like, you're tired of not having a desires in physical reality. And you come across this knowledge, you learn about manifestation, you learn about reality creation, you learn about how all of this works, and you pick a specific technique and you create a practice that you can do every day, right? So so you do the technique and start accessing the higher states. And once you start accessing higher states, you are in a higher state. And what that means is you use the technique properly, whatever technique you pick, and you already have the desire within. You feel satisfied, you feel content, right? You are in high vibration. So you are in a higher state, but what happens is, let's say you do this for a day and you are in the higher state for that particular day, and the next day comes. Next day comes, you forget to do this technique, you forget to do your usual practice, you get programmed. You get programmed to your old frequency rather than your new frequency. So when you do this particular technique, you are accessing a different frequency, right? So you are in a particular frequency to be living in your current circumstances. And if you want to change your circumstances, then you need to change your frequency. So you already have your desire, you are in a higher state, and you access a different frequency. And only when you do it consistently, whatever practice you do, you maintain that frequency, only then it materializes into physical reality. But when the next day rolls and you forget to do this technique, when you forget to do the practice, you get programmed to your old frequency because you meet the same people. You live in the same circumstances. You meet the same people, you go to the same places. So what happens is you again get programmed to your old frequency and you again feel the lower states, you again feel those low vibrational emotions, and you are right back to where you were in the first place, right? So why doing that specific manifestation practice is so important is because the world is programming you every single day, right? The world is programming you every single day. So if you don't program yourself every day you wake up, the moment you wake up, you need to program yourself, or else the world will program it for you, right? So it is very much important the moment you wake up, you do the manifestation practice, whatever practice that you do, whatever technique that you do. I already have several videos on many techniques. I already have a video on what routine you can follow. I have everything. You can check it out. So whatever practice that you do, you need to do it consistently and maintain that new frequency, or else if you don't do it, you will be programmed to your old frequency and you will be right back where you are, right? So think of it like this, right? So this is your old reality, and you have been conditioned for years or even decades right? So you have been maintaining this particular frequency. This can be a lack frequency, this can be you not getting love, whatever bad frequency you are in, you have been maintaining it for years without you realizing it, right? So you have been maintaining this frequency for a long amount of time. So I symbolize it by having a lot of pebbles inside this container. Now this is your new reality. So the more pebbles you get from this old reality and the more consistent you are with your practice. So let's say you do your manifestation practice today. You add a pebble to this new reality. So the more pebble you add to the new reality, the less pebble your old frequency has, right? So you keep adding new pebbles to this new reality. And by adding pebbles, I mean you maintaining the frequency, you maintaining that higher states, right? So you keep maintaining higher states by doing the practice consistently. And the more you do it consistently, the more your old frequency fades away. But what the trick here is, there is still the programming and conditioning that have been instilled within you, right? And you have been doing this consistently. But this old reality, this old frequency will try to come back, will try to take over. So the moment you stop doing the practice, the moment you stop being in a higher state, especially if you're a beginner, so let's say you didn't do the practice for like a week, then you lose the progress that you made in a week because you let the frequency change. Now again, more pebbles have been formed in your old reality, in your old frequency. So do you get my point? So the more consistent you do with your practice, the more consistent you are, the more your old reality gets to fade away. And after some time, the entire container of your old frequency is empty. And this new reality, this new frequency becomes a new state, it becomes a new baseline. So you might ask me, how long does it take for me to do the practice so that this new frequency becomes my new baseline? That depends on you, that depends on you, right? That depends on how long, how many years you have been conditioned into your old frequency, and how consistent, how powerful, how potent your new practice is, right? So that's why it's important that you do this technique, whatever technique you use, or whatever the techniques is, honestly doesn't matter. What matters is the state you are in. If you can be in a good state, if you can be in a good mood without doing the techniques, then that's fine as well. Techniques sorry, techniques is not mandatory. What matters is your state, right? And the third reason, it's a hidden reason on why you face delay fatigue, is you have the belief that manifestation takes time, right? And you also have the belief, you also have the belief that small things are easy to manifest, big things are hard to manifest. First of all, you need to stop falling into this duality. Duality is an illusion of the third dimensional plane. There is no such thing as easy, there's no such thing as hard, there's no such thing as big, there's no such thing as small, right? Only when you have a certain thing to compare to another thing, you can differentiate between what is easy, what is hard, what is big, what is small. And from the universe infinite perspective, universe is infinite, right? So from the universe infinite perspective, there's no such thing as a big thing or a small thing, right? So for many of you, it will be easy for you to manifest a cup of coffee or like getting $100 bill. But manifesting big things, quote unquote big things, such as you being rich, you getting 10 clients this month, you might struggle because you might have this underlying belief that big things are hard to manifest. And another belief that you might have is manifestation takes time. Let me remind you, manifestation is always instant. The moment you decide that you will have a particular desire, you already have it. You already have it in the mental plane. So whenever a thought pops up, why hasn't it appeared in my physical reality? Just think to yourself, just say to yourself that it is already done. My desire has already manifested. It is already done. And you keep reminding it again and again and again. But if you have the belief that manifestation takes time, of course this belief will be proved for you. It will be proved true for you. Of course, you're facing delay fatigue because you think manifestation takes time. It takes a long amount of time to manifest. And if you also have the belief that big things will be hard to manifest, of course, you'll be facing delay fatigue. Right? So, let me rephrase both of these beliefs for you. Manifestation is instant. It doesn't take a long amount of time because you think that manifestation is those desires that you have getting materialized into physical reality. That is not actual definition of manifestation, right? Manifestation is you simply deciding to have that desire and it is already done. That's the manifestation, right? Don't mistake for manifestation of you actually having that desire in physical reality. If you think like that, if you think in terms of physical reality, then of course you will face delay fatigue, right? Manifestation is nothing but you changing your internal landscape to shape your external reality. So once you have the desire within, once you feel like you already have the desire and emit those positive emotions, that is when manifestation becomes instant. And whenever the old reality of old frequency comes, puts doubts within you, and your old frequency might say, it doesn't come into the physical plane. Why are you deluding yourself? Why are you lying to yourself? You simply say to yourself that it is already done. My manifestation has already happened. Thank you. And feel grateful for it. Thank the universe, thank God, and feel grateful for it. And once you feel fully grateful that you already have the desire, that is when that desire in the mental plane gets materialized into the physical plane, right? And next belief is all desires are easy to manifest. Any desire, whatever desires you have, think of it like it is very easy to manifest. Whether it is a cup of coffee or whether it is $1 million, from the universe perspective, both are the same, right? So stop thinking that big things are hard to manifest and start thinking that all desires are easy to manifest, right? Close your eyes and imagine how it would feel if any desire that you want, it is very easy to manifest. Simply imagine it. Simply imagine a scenario that whatever you want in life, it can be easily manifested into physical reality. That is a belief I want you to have. And remember that manifestation is always instant, right? So once you have these beliefs instead of these two beliefs, then you collapse the time that it takes for you to manifest and you get rid of your delay fatigue, right? So let me recap it for you. So to remove your delay fatigue, first of all, always, don't mind the spelling, always prioritize higher states rather than the technique. And then be consistent. Be consistent in your practice. And finally, have the right beliefs about manifestation itself. So always prioritize higher states other than the technique, always be consistent in your practice, and always have the right beliefs about manifestation itself. You may have skewed beliefs about money, you may have skewed beliefs about love. That is very easy to identify. But where most people go wrong is they have skewed beliefs about manifestation itself. Right? So once you fix your beliefs, once you be consistent in your practice, and once you prioritize being in a higher state rather than prioritizing the actual technique, you get rid of delay fatigue. That's how you deal with delay fatigue. And I think that's it. Check out the link in the description to work with me personally. If not, keep consuming my content free for free. Like, yeah, that's it. I will see you in another video.